Hello, everybody. Welcome to Late Night Football. Back home. It's terrible jet lag, but at least I'm back home, back in our studio, so to speak. But anyway, first video back. I said I would do this, and unfortunately, it happened while I was on vacation, and I never had the chance to do it. But I'm going to do it today, talking about Manchester City's Premier League title win. It's a bit of a Premier League season review. The Premier League season review. They haven't yet, completed the season. They've got two big games to come, of course, in the FA Cup and the Champions League, and we'll review those games when they happen. But want to talk about their Premier League title win, and there's good parts to it, and there is negative to it. There's a positive and the negative aspect. I want to talk about both of that because I don't want this to be simply just like how great City were this season, because as good as they were, there are things that will need to be looked at going forward, but not from City's point of view, but from a general Premier League perspective. But I want to talk about that a little bit, so that's what the video is. Getting right into it, I think for Manchester City in February after they lost to Spurs, I think a lot of fans thought this could this be a season where City don't win the title? I mean, at the start of the season, I said when they signed Erling Haaland, they had to win the Premier League and they had to win the Champions League for the season to be considered success. Anything other than that would be failure. And looks like they could do both. But the way that they responded after that defeat to Spurs in February, I thought was excellent. Until that point, I think things were a little bit one-dimensional. I think it was always get it wide, get a cross in, try and see if Haaland can get onto it. I think Haaland himself looked a very limited centre forward. But I think the tactical change that Guardiola made, where he said, fine. And I think the reality was, I think City were always used to playing with six midfielders. That's where they're the edge. They were playing with six midfielders because their striker was also a midfielder in essence. So he was always playing with six midfielders. The thing was that he realized that I need somebody who's going to be playing in midfield, the extra midfielder, but I also need somebody who's going to be converting those chances. So he brought in Haaland and he thought, okay, I'm getting someone who could be a striker and a midfielder. Haaland cannot be a midfielder. He can only be a striker. So he said, fine, I'm going to put in a six midfield. I'm going to make it a 3-6-1 because we dominate games anyway. We don't need an extra defender. And so that's the way they started playing this. And they played a defender as a CDM. Basically, John Stones became the second defensive midfielder alongside Rodri. So it made sense that if they wanted to play with four at the back, they could push John Stones behind when they need to protect leads or when they wanted to play with four. And when they wanted to attack, they could use Sons in midfield. So that was a fantastic tactical change. And for a long time, people thought of Bernardo Silva was playing a left back, this and that. It wasn't Bernardo Silva playing a left back. He was basically playing as a left wing back, left midfielder. The key difference in a 3-6-1 from other 3-5-2s or whatever is that City play with their two wing backs are basically two wide midfielders or wingers. Actually, they're not wing backs, they're two wide midfielders, because neither Grealish nor who are you play with? It's Bernardo, Mahrez, whoever plays on that right hand side, they don't play as orthodox wing backs. They're basically wingers. So they rely on those three centre backs and the fourth centre back to basically control the defense and also the turn. It's a risky tactic, but it's paid off big time, and they just went on a run. And once they went on a run, you always knew City were going to go on a run. The question was whether Arsenal could keep up with that. And like I said, Arsenal had the advantage of not having to win against City, and yet they definitely gave it up as well. But once City took the initiative, you always knew they were going to blow past Arsenal because Arsenal didn't have the squad. They never had the squad depth to win the title, to be honest. It was really all about how long could they keep City away. And they tried, and they did well, but ultimately City have just blown past them, and that is credit to Manchester City. I mean, the players have stepped up. The Stones was excellent. Haaland was brilliant, a bit one-dimensional as at the start, but then he's grown into his role as centre forward. He's become more of a playmaking, target man now, and he's doing really well. And he'll be the X factor, of course, in the big two games that come up. De Bruyne has been excellent as always. Bernardo Silva excellent as well. A player who always seems to be wanting to leave Manchester City, yet always stays and then does well. I don't know if he'll leave at the end of this season finally, but whenever he does, City are going to lose a class player. And then there's Gundogan, who just comes up with clutch goals anytime you need them. Goal on demand kind of thing, isn't he? It's like ATMs. He's like an ATG, anytime goal. For Manchester City, and then you got John Stones, you got Ruben Dias, so many good players, and that's where City has so many good players. They have a big squad that of quality players, and that is the issue. The issue with the other teams now is how do you catch Man City? To catch Manchester City, you need to have two good squads. Does any team in the Premier League have the finances to build two good squads? They don't. No, but the only one that's close is probably Newcastle. But Newcastle are going to need time. They're going to be in the Champions League this season. I think this season they'll strengthen a little bit. I think they'll need another season of Champions League football before they can really start flexing those financial muscles. But right now there's nobody who can compete with Manchester City, and the issue for that is not just financial. Actually, think about financial resources are important, but the other big problem is off the field. City are just so brilliant. They're just running the game like running the club like a machine. There's a fantastic training ground, there's fantastic scouting facilities, they've got a great youth setup. Everything is geared to build that success. And how do you build that again? There's no that at least a financial gap. You can say maybe Newcastle will cover that at some point. Maybe Manchester United, if they get taken over by Qatar, unlikely, but they get taken over by Qatar, they'll eventually close that gap. But there's nobody who can compete with them off the field. There's nothing. And Brighton probably the closest, but Brighton aren't built to that level. They aren't built to take that to go to that level. They're different. Their ambitions are different. But it's just unreal. And again, that will take time. That is the part that will take time. That could take for Newcastle. I don't know how that long that would take. For Manchester United, they're a decade away from that. No matter who the owner, if it's Qatar, it's still going to take a decade for them to close that particular gap of the field. So again, like I said, there's no, and then that question, the question that comes up, and this is not Manchester City's fault, by the way. What they've built, they've cheated obviously, and they've broken the rules. But what they've done after breaking that rules is not Manchester. They've been very efficient, and they've built a system and an empire just based on smart thinking. And that's not City's fault that they've used that money wisely. But the problem for the Premier League now is, how do you counter that? Is there a way to counter that? Is there anybody who can stop Manchester City next season? I'm sure the hype guys will be, I know, Liverpool will be back, and I'll talk about that, about Liverpool as well. And Arsenal will do well, and Manchester United are back, and all that stuff. But the reality is there's nobody close. Ask anybody who's going to win the title next season right now, and 99 out of 100 will say Manchester City. The one will probably be a contrarian to say somebody else, but 99 out of 100 will say Manchester City. And that's the problem. And that's something the Premier League is going to have to tackle at some point. Like, how do you get past that? Because otherwise, if City win the next 2-3 titles, what's to stop this from becoming League One or Bundesliga? That's the fear. That is a fear that the Premier League should be concerned by. That is not Manchester City's fault, by the way. I want to keep reiterating that. That is not Manchester City's fault. That is for the Premier League to figure out. That should this sort of thing should never have happened, but it's happened. Now they've got to think about that. And unfortunately, the solution is to just have more owners like that coming in, because at this point, you can't really get a good, sensible Sir Jim Ratcliffe type owner and expect to win the league. That's just not going to happen. You need a Qatar, you need an Elon Musk, you need a Jeff Bezos, those kind of people to come in, buy football clubs, and then they can compete. And that is a thing in itself. But that is the negative aspect of City winning the title, because 14 points. I mean, we talked about Arsenal challenging, right? We talked about Arsenal, well, they challenged City, and yet they finished 14 points behind. So where is the challenge? Is that the challenge? Is that a new norm that somebody finishes 14 points behind? Anyway, that's just my take on it. That's the negative side of it. And again, like I keep reiterating, because I know sometimes people get very defensive about this sort of thing, but this is not City's fault that this has happened. It is a fault of the Premier League that they've allowed this to happen, because this was a natural conclusion that was going to happen. Now, and they've got, like I said, they've got 2 big finals. We probably won't do a preview for them. We'll do the review, of course, of the finals. But City are favorites going into both of them. Will they win both of them? That's another question, isn't it? But they definitely are favorites for that, and it will be very interesting to see how it will approach. And you know what? Kudos to Southampton, because if Southampton hadn't beaten Manchester City, then City would have been on for a quadruple. So that might be the one loss that might hurt Manchester City. But nonetheless, well done. A great season from City, of course, overall. They showed a lot of fight, a lot of character, I have to say, which is not something we say often, but they had to show a lot of character after that Spurs defeat to come back in the way that they did. We all knew they were capable of it, and I felt like it was only a matter of time before they would. But still, it's one thing to think that they can do it. It's one thing to believe that they can do it. It's another thing to actually go out and do it. And I did that, and that deserves a lot of kudos, a lot of congratulations for that. So anyway, congratulations to City. Congratulations to all City fans for the title win. Hope you enjoy it, celebrate it, savor it, and let's see what the next couple of games bring. But share your thoughts, of course. Smash like if you enjoyed this video. Share your thoughts on City's title win. Do you think Premier League needs to do something? They're not going to do anything, but do you think there's something going to happen? The charges are looming, but you know what? The charges, that's a whole other story. I don't want to get into it, but I don't think that's going to solve anything. But nonetheless, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Thank you so much. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.